name is Sophie, welcome to my nook. Today's video is a book review plus me talking about some things that I found interesting. But first, I'll give you a little backstory. It all started with my mom. My mom was introduced to movies by Hayao Miyazaki and by Studio Ghibli before she had me, and when I was a little kid she showed me those movies. I found those movies really magical and beautiful, and fast forward to 2021, I am a young adult. I face ordinary difficulties in life and find peace in those movies by Studio Ghibli and by Hayao Miyazaki. But now I see them a bit differently. My mom also gifted me a book that I didn't have a chance to read before, but this year I finally had a chance, attention span to read it, and it is this one. It is Miyazakiworld. It was written by Susan Napier. This book is obviously dedicated to the worlds that were created by what Susan Napier and many other people would call him auteur Hayao Miyazaki. This book is divided into prologue, 15 chapters, 10 of which are dedicated to a particular movie directed by Hayao Miyazaki, and conclusion. I'm not here to retell this book completely. I'd rather share my experience reading it and talk about some things that I found interesting or peculiar. Before diving into this book's content, I would like to focus on the book cover. I had to search for the English version of this book to find who is the designer of the book cover. It was designed by Sonia L. Shannon, and I would like just to take a moment and appreciate her work. I think this book is really beautiful. Moving on. I gathered some information on Susan Napier from Wikipedia page dedicated to her and from this book. According to Wikipedia, Susan Napier is a professor of the Japanese program at Tufts University. She was formerly the Mitsubishi Professor of Japanese Literature and Culture at the University of Texas at Austin. She also worked as a visiting professor in the Department of East Asian Languages and Civilizations at Harvard University and in Cinema and Media Studies at University of Pennsylvania. Napier is an anime and manga critic, and she seems to be a true fan of Hayao Miyazaki and his works. It was mentioned that it took 8 years to complete writing this book. The author made a lot of research, and she even met with Hayao Miyazaki and had insightful conversations with him. I can't even begin to imagine how great it is to meet someone whose works you admire. If I had to describe this book in one sentence, I would say that reading it was inspirational and kind of soothing, knowing that person had failures and successes along the way towards the place where you know them to be is quite reassuring and calming. In this book, Susan Napier manages to describe a lot of aspects of Hayao Miyazaki's world building. She shows how personality of the animator seeps through his masterpieces. In the beginning of this book, she describes Hayao Miyazaki's personality, his political beliefs, his trauma and guilt that he experienced. She mentions how growing up during the Second World War and in the post-war Japan affected him, that there's a lot of guilt and trauma because of the role that Japan and also his family played in the World War II. She connects internal conflict and guilt to several plot lines and or characters created by him. She frequently returns to a theme of ecological catastrophes in the works of Hayao Miyazaki and why he shines a light on them. She explores his anti-war stance, his labor union activities, and criticism of excessive materialism. But that's a lot to tackle in one video, and I would leave these topics for you to discover on your own if you want to. I also believe that there is a lot of videos on YouTube dedicated to any topic that was mentioned previously, so feel free to check them out. When Susan Napier writes about animated movies that inspired her Miyazaki to become an animator, she mentions The White Snake Enchantress, the first animated movie by Toei Animation made in 1958, and what surprised me, The Snow Queen, the Soviet adaptation made in 1963. That surprised me for two reasons. Firstly, that's silly of me, but I tend to forget that people outside the USSR could watch Soviet films and cartoons. I don't know why, that's just how it is. I'm sorry. And secondly, I simply didn't know about the adaptation made in 1963. I was familiar only with the adaptation, the Soviet adaptation made in 1957, and I believe, maybe I am wrong, but most people my age are familiar with this particular adaptation as it is more well known. And it's all thanks to this book that I found out about other adaptations of The Snow Queen and about many other movies that I haven't watched before. Another thing that I found really interesting and I have to share it with you is that Hayao Miyazaki, Astrid Lindgren, and Tove Jansson not only existed on the same timeline, which I didn't know for some reason. It's again my problem. It's hard for me to piece together that one well-known person lived at the same time as another well-known person. Yeah, I don't know why. But they not only existed on the same timeline, they interacted with each other indirectly or directly. Let's start with Astrid Lindgren and Hayao Miyazaki because interaction between them is described in this book. So when Susan Napier writes about Hayao Miyazaki's career before the foundation of Studio Ghibli, she mentions that Isao Takahata and Hayao Miyazaki, as well as a group of their colleagues, had to fly to Sweden to ask permission from Astrid Lindgren to animate her Pippi Longstockings, and she declined. And that's about them. It was in 1971. I've read about Tove Jansson and Astrid Lindgren somewhere else, of course. So, story between them is that Astrid Lindgren asked Tove Jansson to illustrate the Swedish edition of Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, and that's all that I know about them. And finally, Tove Jansson and Hayao Miyazaki, how they connected. In 1969, the first Japanese Moomins TV series aired, and Tove Jansson wasn't pleased with it at all because of several deviations from the original. For example, Hayao Miyazaki drew a tank for Moomins to use, and that really disappointed Tove Jansson, which I can understand. But that's it. That's how they are connected. These are three people who inspire me, and I just needed you to know this. I'm sorry if you didn't need this information. But yeah, that's it. Let's move on. Susan Napier examines female characters in the worlds of Hayao Miyazaki, and she makes an assumption as to why women and girls are usually the protagonists in the works of Hayao Miyazaki. She also underlines that many characters were inspired by various women in the life of Hayao Miyazaki. For example, his mom, his wife, and his colleagues. Towards the end, Susan Napier explores how older age affected Hayao Miyazaki and his work. I don't remember exactly where it was said, but I believe it was a recurring statement that Hayao Miyazaki craved living in a secluded area away from busy city life. Um, and while analyzing Ponyo, Susan Napier also says that Hayao Miyazaki was feeling really tired, which is understandable. He had a rich career, a long career, and he made many people happy throughout his life and his work life, uh, which I am really grateful for. And he inspired me a lot. We've reached the end of this video. Thank you for staying with me. I really appreciate it. And here are my final thoughts. I enjoyed reading Miyazakiworld by Susan Napier. It was a total delight. I learned a lot about Miyazaki and his long career. And I highly recommend reading it if you are a Studio Ghibli fan or if you are a person in a creative field that feels stuck or uninspired or unmotivated. I think that may help you. So yeah, I have a request. Please tell me in the comments down below what is your favorite movie by Studio Ghibli or by Hayao Miyazaki. I can choose only one. I would say that Kiki's Delivery Service and Spirited Away are on top of my list. Yeah, I quite enjoy them. So that's it. Bye! Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I plan doing more book related videos in the future.